She was elegant, innocent, just another woman shopping in broad daylight. But within minutes, hands were on her. Accusations flew, cameras rolled, and dignity? Gone. They thought they were just dealing with another nobody. They didn't know they had just searched the wife of the city's most powerful cop. This is the story of how one woman's humiliation sparked a city-wide reckoning, and how power, when wielded with truth, can shake the walls of injustice. Before we dive into today's powerful story, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories that expose truth and challenge injustice, hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. It was just another sunny afternoon in Seattle when Julia Johnson, dressed in a stunning black dress, was browsing through designer handbags at a luxury boutique in the fashionable Pike Place district. Little did she know her ordinary shopping trip was about to turn into a nightmare. Store employees had been watching her, whispering, judging. Within minutes, 2 uniformed police officers marched through the door, their eyes locked on Julia like predators spotting prey. "Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions," one officer said, his hand hovering near his weapon. Confused but calm, Julia responded, "Of course, officer. What's the problem? That bag in your hand, did you pay for it?" the second officer demanded, his words dripping with accusation. Julia looked down at the designer purse she'd been admiring. "No, I was just looking at it," she explained, her heart beginning to race. The officers exchanged knowing glances. "We received a report of a suspicious person matching your description. Step outside with us." On the bustling sidewalk, surrounded by curious onlookers, Julia's dignity was stripped away piece by piece. The officers demanded identification and bombarded her with questions about her whereabouts. "Do you have receipts for anything in that store?" one sneered. "I haven't even purchased anything yet," Julia replied, her voice trembling with disbelief. Without warning, an officer grabbed her shoulders. "Turn around. We need to search you." Julia's heart pounded against her chest. This wasn't just embarrassing. It was racial profiling at its most blatant. The officers weren't treating her as a citizen. They were handling her like a criminal. "I've done nothing wrong. Please, call my husband," Julia pleaded as hands patted down her clothes. A bystander, recording everything on their phone, whispered to another, "They have no idea who they're messing with." Suddenly, a black SUV screeched to a halt in front of the store. The door flew open, and out stepped Police Commissioner Robert Johnson, still in his full uniform. His presence commanded attention. His expression burned with fury. He stormed toward the officers, his voice booming across the street. "What the hell is going on here?" The officers froze instantly. One stammered, Sir, we were responding to a theft report. By searching my wife?" Commissioner Johnson's voice cut like ice. The officer, now visibly sweating, tried to explain. "She fit the description we received, sir." Robert turned to Julia, jaw clenched tight. "Did they touch you?" When she nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears, he turned back to his subordinates. "You just put your hands on the police commissioner's wife. Do you understand what you've done?" The scene had transformed into a spectacle. What started as an unjustified search had exploded into a confrontation between 2 patrolmen and their highest-ranking superior. The gathering crowd watched in stunned silence as Commissioner Johnson pulled out his phone. "This is Commissioner Johnson. I need an internal affairs team at First and Pine immediately. I have an incident involving 2 of our officers. Full investigation. Now." The officers exchanged panicked glances. One tried desperately to salvage the situation. "Sir, we were just following procedure. We got a report about a shoplifter, and your wife matched the description." "Don't insult my intelligence," Johnson snapped. "You mean to tell me that in a store full of people, the only person you chose to interrogate, publicly humiliate, and search was the black woman?" Before the officer could stammer another excuse, 2 unmarked police cars pulled up. Internal affairs investigators stepped out, their presence signaling serious consequences. The lead investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Detective Sarah Williams, approached. "Commissioner, what's the situation?" Johnson gestured toward Julia, who stood tall despite her ordeal. "These officers unjustly searched and humiliated my wife based on nothing but racial bias. They need to be investigated immediately." Detective Williams turned to the officers. "Hand over your body cam footage. Now." As the footage was collected, Commissioner Johnson made his position crystal clear. "I want them suspended until a full review is complete. If this isn't their first offense, they won't just lose their badges. They'll face civil rights charges in court." Within hours, bystander videos went viral. News outlets across the country flashed headlines. Police commissioner's wife wrongfully searched in racial profiling incident. And if the commissioner's family isn't safe, who is? Social media exploded with outrage. If this happens to the wife of Seattle's top cop, imagine what happens to regular folks with no connections. This proves racial profiling isn't about crime. It's about color. She was guilty in their eyes just for existing in that store. Community activists organized protests outside police headquarters, demanding immediate action. The city's mayor called an emergency press conference the next day. "This incident is completely unacceptable," the mayor declared. "I've spoken with Commissioner Johnson and fully support his investigation. Our city must do better." Internal affairs worked quickly. The body camera footage confirmed everything. There was no theft, no reasonable suspicion, and absolutely no justification for how Julia Johnson was treated. The recording even caught the officers making dismissive remarks about her protests. When questioned, the officers' excuses crumbled. "We had to follow up on a report," one insisted. Detective Williams leaned forward. "And did you question anyone else in the store?" The officer hesitated. No buts. You singled out one person based on assumptions rather than facts. That's not policing. That's profiling." Meanwhile, the boutique that had sparked the chaos by calling the police faced an immediate and merciless backlash. Within hours of the incident, the store's name was plastered across social media, trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok under hashtags like Boycott Pike Place Boutique and Shopping While Black. Angry customers flooded the boutique's website and review pages. This store racially profiled an innocent woman and treated her like a criminal. "I refuse to support businesses that discriminate." If Julia Johnson had been a white woman, no cops would have shown up. Shame on this boutique. Fire the staff. Shut it down. This isn't just a PR mistake. This is racism, plain and simple. Online influencers and civil rights advocates joined the movement, amplifying the call for accountability. Local news covered the story relentlessly, with camera crews parked outside the boutique and microphones shoved in the faces of store employees who hurried to work behind tinted glass doors. Facing mounting pressure, the store's manager issued a statement the next morning. Nervously reading from a prepared note, she addressed the growing outrage. "We deeply regret the misunderstanding and are taking steps to educate our staff on implicit bias. This does not reflect our company's values, and we're committed to doing better." But apologies weren't enough. Within 72 hours, protesters gathered outside the boutique with signs reading "Black Wallets Matter" and "Shame Lives Here." Chants echoed down the block. Business slowed to a crawl. Inside, tensions boiled. Staff whispered about the incident with dread. Some employees resigned. Others pleaded with management to clear the air. But the damage was already done. Within weeks, the boutique's sales plummeted. Long-time customers canceled memberships and VIP programs. Emails demanding refunds poured in. Ultimately, the employee who made the initial report, the one who claimed Julia fit the description of a thief, was fired. But the backlash wasn't just about one person. It was about a pattern, a culture, a system, and the public had had enough. A catalyst for change. For Commissioner Robert Johnson, this wasn't just about his wife. It was about the countless people of color who'd faced similar treatment, but didn't have a police commissioner to storm in and stop it. At a highly anticipated press conference held on the steps of police headquarters, Commissioner Johnson stood beside Julia, her hand firmly in his. Dozens of microphones pointed toward him. Cameras flashed. The nation watched. As police commissioner, he began, his voice steady, I've always believed in justice, but justice must be for everyone, not just the privileged. What happened to my wife was unacceptable. It exposed flaws in our system, and I intend to fix them. He paused to look directly into the cameras. Effective immediately, all officers will undergo mandatory anti-bias training. We're launching a zero-tolerance policy on racial profiling. Any officer found guilty will face disciplinary action, up to and including termination. Then Julia stepped forward, her voice soft but strong. This isn't just about me. This is about making sure no woman, no black person, ever has to endure that kind of humiliation again. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And it does. Every day. Her words spread across the internet like wildfire. Her poise, her pain, her power. It resonated far beyond Seattle. The lasting impact. In the months that followed, Commissioner Johnson backed his words with action. New policies were rolled out. Officers now received quarterly training on racial bias, de-escalation, and cultural sensitivity. A civilian oversight committee, made up of community leaders, educators, and activists, was formed to investigate discrimination complaints. The two officers who humiliated Julia never returned to active duty. One resigned quietly under public scrutiny. The other was dismissed after an internal investigation uncovered a pattern of racial profiling complaints, many of which had been ignored until now. Meanwhile, Julia refused to let the experience silence her. She partnered with civil rights organizations, began speaking at universities and city forums, and became a passionate advocate for reform. Not just in policing, but in how everyday institutions treat black women. Her story was featured in documentaries, news specials, and talk shows. People around the country wrote to her, sharing their own stories of humiliation, fear, and profiling. Julia read every letter. The city that woke up. Seattle changed. Not overnight, but noticeably. Police officers began attending community events they once ignored. The department saw a rise in minority recruits. Store owners across the city began undergoing anti-bias training of their own. Voluntarily. They didn't want to be the next viral headline. And that small boutique on Pike Place? It eventually shut down. But what rose in its place wasn't just a different business. It was a city more aware, more vocal, and more unwilling to stay silent. A voice that started a movement. Though the scars of that day would never fully heal, Julia Johnson had become something more than a victim. She was now a catalyst, a symbol, a voice for thousands who had once suffered in silence. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true stories that expose injustice and ignite change. Drop a comment below. Have you ever experienced or witnessed racial profiling? What would accountability look like to you?